Perfect. Hello, today I am live with Dave Gulas, and I'm so excited to chat with him. He is the president and co-founder of Easy Deasy 3PL logistics company, and he also is the host of Beyond Fulfillment, which is a podcast. And the reason why I wanted to have him on the show is because a lot of times I work with health and wellness coaches who want to grow their business and they want to learn marketing and they want to market to high performers. They want to market to, successful executives. They want to market to people in leadership roles. Why? Because they want to help them with their stress. They want to help them with their health. They want to help people who can actually pay for their services. But a lot of times they're missing the mark in their marketing. And as somebody who's really into health and wellness, Dave and I were having a conversation and he was telling me, I'm a dad, I'm a leader in my business, I host a podcast, I do a lot of things, and I'm really into my health. I know the importance of it. But I get marketed to by these health coaches, and so many times he's immediately turned off, or he, just has things to say that he would like to share with health coaches to better help them with their marketing. So thank you for being here, Dave. I'm excited to dig into this.
Oh, yeah. Thanks so much for having me, Haley. I'm excited to be here.
Yeah. So tell me a little bit about, when have you ever worked with a health coach or worked with a personal trainer or anything like that?
Yeah, yeah. At various times, I remember actually in my early 20s, I did one of those transformation contests they had at the gym. I was just psyched up to do it. I actually had my first child on the way, and I was just thinking, man, if I win this prize of this transformation contest, boy, that would set me up nice. And so I hired a trainer and I did it. And even though I got in great shape and I had a great transformation, within the 30 days, I didn't win, but I remember hiring a trainer for that specifically. And I've had, various coaches at different times,
Yeah.
throughout my life.
Yeah. And I'm curious for you, when you did do that competition and when you have worked with people or hired coaches, what was it that drove you to do it? Like, what was your motivating factor or what was your pain point? Like, what kind of things if you had been marketed to, would you have resonated with?
Yeah, well, it's always something like for me personally, right? I have no problem doing the work. It's just understanding specifically what to do. Right. So when I would let's just go back to that transformation content. It was like the best transformation within 30 days. And 30 days is a very short amount of time. So it was just basically what specifically do I need to do? So I mean, the guy was putting me through some incredibly tough workout, even though I would go to the gym at the time. Right. He was putting me through harder workouts than I was used to. He was having me eat differently than I was used to, and just having me, on this whole regimen, and just and basically just like do this, do that, do this, do that for the whole 30 days. And it worked really well. And I have, I thought was a very compelling transformation. But yeah, so it's just understanding, I guess, the knowledge and the guidance that you need in any given area, especially if you don't have it. That's what I would look for, because I have no problem, with discipline or motivation. It's more so understanding what specifically do I need to do.
Yeah. And I think so often I see health coaches just focusing on, I'm going to be your cheerleader. I'm going to support you. I'm going to give you accountability. And if you're marketing to somebody like yourself, who's like a leader in your company and you're very busy and things like that, it's not that usually, you don't really need that much accountability or cheerleading. You need to know, it sounds like, what to do and that you're going to get to your goals or the transformation you want. Would you agree with that, or what are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, I mean, again, everyone's different, but like if you're talking about the you're right, high performer type space, right? Like, even like if you look at it now, right? Like I'm in my 40s, and so it's a whole different ball game in terms of your health and fitness, as opposed to when you're in. I did that transformation. I was in my early 20s, but it's a whole different ball game in terms of, your lifestyle, your family situation, your income, your life looks totally different. So again, and I get marketed by coaches and people that are in their, very young and in their early 20s, right? Which is nothing wrong with that, but just understand who you're speaking to.
Right.
Um, so as an example, right? There was this, I forget the guy's name, but he basically had said something like, if you don't get at least 8 hours of sleep, you don't care about your health, type of thing.
Mm,
And it's just like, okay, right. That's conventional wisdom out there for a lot of people, is that maybe is an ideal minimum amount. But again, if you're talking to an executive or a founder or an entrepreneur in their 40s, like me personally, I have 6 kids. They're all athletes. I run a company. I host a podcast, crazy schedule. Would I love to sleep 8 hours a night? Yeah, of course. But does that happen? No. I mean, it's
yeah.
just, and that's just reality. So understand.
Mhm.
And I've talked to many, many people too, where that's the same case for them. And some people, of course, can have the time and they make that a priority, where other people do it differently. But just understand who you're speaking to and what their life looks like and what their challenges are and where you can potentially fit into that puzzle to offer value.
Right. It's about meeting your ideal client where they are at and not communicating something that they can't even fathom, you know, that's going to be doable for them. Um, Now, what about like, what are some, when you've hired people in the past, what are some things you look for? Like, what's important to you? What leads you to like be attracted to a certain type of coach?
Yeah, I mean it's just obviously I guess the vibe, you could call it.
Mhm.
Like, do you get along, and I'm always evaluating people, because again, right, I deal with all sorts of different people in business and throughout my life in general. So I'm always evaluating whoever I'm talking to, on many different levels. But just understanding, right, their credibility, do you interact with them well? The advice they're giving and why that is, or even like as an example, in our business, I've hired numerous consultants, and it's every single time it's been someone that I established a relationship with first, and I like
Mhm.
them as a person, and I basically came to them and said, "How can I work with you?" Basically, because
Mhm.
they were of that much value that I said, I've got to take this a step further and have you, in a paid capacity, right? To whereas, and each time they weren't trying to pressure sales me up front, or trying to be pushy, or trying to,
Mhm.
I'm not going to do anything unless you pay me, type of thing. We just had a relationship first and foremost, and then it turned into a business relationship, to where, like in your space too, especially with health and fitness, or wellness, or whatever the type of coaching it is. Like, if you have if where you can offer value, and you can let people know who you are and what you're about and how you are to interact with, and it doesn't have to be this, because so many of the pitches I get are just, I'm spammed on LinkedIn constantly for
Mm.
all types of stuff, and it's just like, it's just a turnoff, right? Versus,
Mhm.
if you can establish a relationship with someone first, however you do that, and then they get to know the type of person you are, and then you have a way to work with you further. I feel like that's a much better approach.
Totally. Yeah, I have a process called the 4 steps of client attraction, and it's connect with people. So you have to build your network, you have to build relationships with people. Then you engage with them, which is building the relationship, learning more about them. What do they find useful and helpful? Then you become someone who's helpful to them, either being a connector, being somebody who, the third step of the process is called pre offer, where you give value up front, you build a relationship up front, and then you go into the sales process if they're interested, which is, they want more help or they have a certain challenge they come to you with or whatever that may be. And you can't skip. It's kind of like when you get a cold pitch, probably on LinkedIn, they're probably skipping the step of building the relationship with you. Would you agree? It's kind of like straight into a sales pitch or something.
Yeah, yeah, and like, it's just so. I mean, Right? Like, and I get it, right? Especially LinkedIn, it's online, right?
Mhm.
It's not the same as if you get to know somebody on a more personal level where you're speaking to them or you're in person or whatever. But at the same time, too, it's just so they get straight into the sales pitch, and it's just like it's just delete like right away in
Yeah,
my mind, right? Because
right.
yeah, it's just too much high pressure too quickly, for sure.
Yeah, and it wasn't expressed that you had even an interest or you had a need or you had a goal or you had a health challenge. Like you didn't even share anything that would like lead them to believe, "Oh, I should make a pitch to this person." They just go straight to the pitch, which is kind of strange, right? So, well, yeah, go ahead, sorry.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. So it's just kind of like, if they if the coach is like, I help entrepreneurs do whatever, right? A, B, and
Mhm.
C. Because I'm an entrepreneur, because I'm a founder, or whatever, I just get lumped into that spam funnel that they have to
Mhm.
where they're always, and yeah, it's like yeah, there's a better way to do it, like you said.
Yeah. What are some of the ways that, because you're an entrepreneur, so you get it, that you've networked throughout the years? Like, how do you get out there? How do you meet people? What has worked well for you?
Yeah, so I host a podcast, as you mentioned, so that's been a very powerful networking tool. I'm always just networking in general. Like when I first, our logistics company is 3.5 years old, and we came from the pharmaceutical industry. So we switched industries, and had to basically learn how this industry works, meet a whole bunch of new people, understand who the players were, understand how a lot of different things worked. So I would go to trade shows. I was constantly networking and getting introductions for people and just wanting to, have Zoom calls and understand how this works or how that worked. I would join different networking groups. Eventually, I started my podcast, like I said, and over time, just continue to connect with more and more people. And again, I think part of it is through that whole process, even though we're trying to grow our business, we're trying to sell and scale and all that, but it's not being like so high pressure. It's getting to know people, understanding who they are. Is there a potential fit? If not, that's okay. How can I help you? Like giving value
Mhm.
first. I mean, I can't tell you the amount of times where, and this is just something I do where I know this person and I know that person, and neither one of them is not potentially doing any business with, but I think they're a great fit for each other. I'm going to introduce them. Hey, s- uh,
Exactly.
person A, I think you should meet person B. Here's who they each are. I'll let you guys take it from here. I mean, I've done that, can't even count how many times. And it's just like you said, right? That type of stuff comes back to you. And you know, even if it doesn't, that's just the right thing to do, because if there's potential value there, why not? And I get that too, coming back to me, where someone says, "Hey, Dave, I think you should really talk to so and so because I think there's a potential fit there." And I mean, that happens to me, and right, that's just good energy and putting it out there.
Exactly. It's like that's the power of networking, which is just, the more people you know, the more people you can connect to each other and they have useful opportunities together. And going in with this mindset of how can I serve, what can I give, how can I be helpful is so much more important than, what can I get out of this person, or if this isn't going to be a sale, then it's not worth my time. You just have to commit to, I am going to connect with people. I'm going to be a networker. I'm going to be a connector. And you're right, it does, as you build your network, you just are able to offer more value to people and you get better at understanding like who would be good connections. And like you said, it sometimes comes back to you, maybe not all the time and maybe not in the exact ways you think it's going to come back to you, but it does compound over time. And I find that the most successful entrepreneurs really lead with, how can I serve? What can I give? That kind of thing. Have you noticed that?
100%, 100%. And then I'll give you an example of the opposite too, where somehow I got introduced to this consultant and we were just getting to know each other. And I'm sure you've seen this where, we're just connecting to network, and then they start with the discovery questions, and they're trying to turn,
Mm, a
and then
bait
it's
and switch is what we call that.
yeah. And then so I very politely said, "Hey, this isn't they start, I had met this person like 2 minutes ago, and they started asking me about my goals for the next 5 years and that type of,
Mm.
and I just said, this isn't the time to discuss." And then as soon as I kind of shut that down, they said, "Okay, well, I gotta go." And they ended the call.
Oh,
And it's just like, okay, cool. Good luck with that approach. But it's
yeah.
like be a real human being and get to know people. And if there's nothing there, that's fine. But don't burn bridges by just trying to be
Mhm.
so strictly transactional.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. And I think it's important. I mean, if you're having a discovery call and someone booked a discovery call and they know it's a discovery call, like a sales call, that should be very clear. Versus if it's a connection call or collaboration call or a networking call, that's a different kind of call. And what I've had happen to me is I've had, even sometimes when I book podcasts, interviews, I've had times where they have like, oh well, you have to do like a pre-call interview, and then they turn it into, well, like, if you want us to make content for you and you want us, like, it almost becomes a bait and switch where it's like, now they're, rather than me being on their podcast, or in order to be on their podcast, I have to like become a client, and they have to make content for me or something like that. Or I've had it where they interview me for a short interview, and then after they're like, okay, so now we are going to show you something to like make this. I had one weird situation where like, to make this podcast go live, you have to sign up for a package and blah blah blah. It was like so strange, right? So now I've even had it with podcast stuff where people turn it into a sales funnel or opportunity. So I don't know about that, but that's an immediate turnoff to me.
So yeah, I've had the exact same thing. I actually did a post about that a few months ago because it was just ridiculous. Like they said, "Hey, do you want to be my podcast?" I said, "Okay, sure." They're like, "Okay, we got to do a pre-call." And then the pre-call was like a discovery call. And I'm like, come on. Like they coach entrepreneurs, so they want to have entrepreneurs on the podcast, but then the whole purpose of the podcast is like strictly a lead magnet for the coaching business. And it's like, I've never been a fan of that approach, because same thing, like I host a podcast about entrepreneurship, right? And I have a service business where we service entrepreneurs that are selling a physical product, but they're not like strictly, I'm doing the podcast to provide value. If it turns into business, that's great. But regardless, I'm interviewing entrepreneurs. I'm putting the content out to provide value. But there's no pre-call, and there's no like, same with your podcast. There, it's out there to provide value, and to put these conversations out so others can benefit. But to try to confuse the two, especially under like in a bait and switch type of environment, it is not a good way to do business, in my opinion.
Yeah. And I think it's important we highlight that we're not against, like, if someone you interview on your podcast says they're struggling with something, and you know someone who could help them as a service provider, or you feel like you could help them with a challenge they shared with you, we're not against saying, like, do you want to talk about that? But it's permission based. It's not, oh, let's go into a discovery call right this second and talk about, or doing it unasked, right? Would you like, because in order to have a business, you do need to make offers, but you have to make it when it's someone said they want something, or they've expressed a need to you that you can help with, rather than, and it should be permission based rather than like a bait and switch. Is that
Yeah,
kind
because here, like, who do you think? I can't even see a scenario where that's gonna work. Like, who's gonna, especially if you're baiting them in under the guise of, we're just having a podcast pre-call, and then you turn it into something else. Like, who's really gonna fall for that? I don't know. I
of,
just,
right? I
like,
know.
yeah, you got to get permission to pitch. There really has to be a reason, or otherwise you look slimy.
Yeah. Yeah. And now I think what's happened, and this maybe has happened even to you, is people have their guard up now. It's like, oh, if you want to start a conversation with me on LinkedIn, I already think you're going to try to sell me something. And now we live in a very skeptical world. So, how do you navigate, because you're a business owner too, how would you recommend these health coaches navigate? Like, people need to build trust. People are in a trust recession. People are skeptical. How would you advise a health coach to really move through that and kind of like build that trust?
Yeah, and I love that's such a perfect word, a trust recession, right? Because I'll tell you, my guard is up because I can't even count the amount of LinkedIn requests I get these days, and sometimes I'm so busy, there's like a ton of them, and then I'm looking at their tagline, and it's like, I help companies do X, and I help, and it's just like I already know where this is, sometimes I'm just like I don't have time for more spam, right? So, but I would say what would I recommend a health coach do is start with lead with value. That's always you have to lead with value. So in terms of the content on LinkedIn, right? Like I follow certain people that put out a lot of value and it's compelling stuff. And there's, it's like, free, ask, right? And that type of, they're putting out just a lot of valuable content. They may have a free newsletter. They're putting out posts with useful information, people that you can really gain something value from. And occasionally they're, wherever in the sequence, they're going to have a product or something for sale and they'll ask for something, right? That's a much better way than just trying to spam your way into people. But you have to have some demonstrable credibility that you know what you're talking about. And I mean, the biggest thing I can say in the health and fitness space is just putting out content, valuable content that people want to learn from and deal. And there's no shortage uh, of a need for that, right? Because the health and fitness space is how big and it's been around how long, and then you look at the overall macro where everyone's at. I mean, there's probably more unhealthy people than ever right now. So there's more of a need for it.
Yeah.
But yeah, it just has to be done in the right way.
Yeah. And what kind of content? I mean, you're busy, so I mean, maybe you don't even consume content, but what kind of content pulls you in as far as like what kind of things do you want to see when it comes to health? Do you like posts that are like more informational? Do you like story types of posts? Like what kind of gets you interested?
Yeah, I mean, it's just compelled. Like one guy, if you want me to name specific people, one guy I follow that's applicable to like my situation. His name is Dan Go, right? He does fitness, health and fitness for the over 40 crowd. But and again, right, which is a much different situation than if you're in your early 20s and right now. He's all about injury prevention and whatnot, and even some of the statistics he gives about like walking right after you strength train is an effective way to burn fat, right? And other about why you should or shouldn't eat certain things and whatnot. So I like to pay attention to just stuff that intrigues me, where there's a some science behind it and there's some statistics, and it's something that's easy for me to implement. Right. Like that's actually something that I've been doing when he had a whole post about that. Now, every time after I strength train, I'll intentionally walk for, 10 minutes or so, just because that's something easy for me to do. It's much less stress than doing the hit workouts or anything like that. And so that's just an example, but I like things that are just, quick, easy to implement and that interest me. So I guess
Yeah.
whatever your lane is, just find a way to, to make it easy to digest, I guess.
Yeah, exactly. Awesome. I love some of these tips. Is there anything else you want to share with any health coaches listening who want to grow their business, want to meet more people, that you'd share with them as a final note?
Yeah, well, yeah, listen, right? I love the 4-step framework that you laid out in terms of getting to know people, and providing value, and then, following the natural progression of a relationship. Because again, I think you've had that, but like what I laid out from the different consultants I've hired in business is kind of that exact thing, right? They followed the right progression. And then I was like, how can I do business with you? So if you find a way to do that and you do it from a good place, good intentions, that's going to work a lot better than some of the other stuff that we talked about that people are doing.
Yeah, for sure. And if you guys are listening and you want to get a deeper dive into that 4 steps of client attraction, I have a free playbook and cheat sheet. It goes through how do you rank yourself and how you're doing on each of those and where do you start with each of those. And it's at haleyrowe.com/client-attraction. Dave, where can people connect with you and your company and your podcast?
Yeah, so Easy DC 3PL, you can Google that. You can find me on LinkedIn, Dave Gulas, Gulas. And then if you want to hear some really cool entrepreneurial stories, you can check out the Beyond Fulfillment podcast. And we're on YouTube and everywhere else podcasts are heard.
Amazing. So we'll have to put those in the show notes. And thank you so much for being here today.
Hey, thank you, Haley.